All right,
Don't
folks,
touch.
buckle your seatbelts because here we go.
Here we go.
This is all preamble. This is good. This is the
Hi.
stuff that
Welcome to the
I
show.
like.
We'll do the well.
Oh, you'll do it.
Yeah, we'll do.
This is Dr. Joshua Katz,
And Dr. Ellen Lottie.
and
Dr. Elliot Frohman.
this is another episode of Gray Matters.
So we're thrilled to have Elliot here with us. He's a special friend and colleague and mentor to both of us. Much of what we do emulates what he's done at UT Southwestern.
He's also the namesake to our MS Center.
This is really a very special friendship, and I'm delighted to be here. I'd like to have a conversation where there are no outtakes. We run all the way through. Whatever you do or don't like, just keep going.
Well, actually, we're not going to do that because we recorded about 45 minutes of conversation and it looped and wound all over the place. I'm going to try and edit it down, so here goes.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Hopefully, it'll be useful, and perhaps we'll do it again.
Part of what we share is our passion for looking after MS patients. It's all about the love, which is a phrase that I coined from Elliot years ago and use all the time. That's what this is about, our taking care of the patients. They're taking care of us, our learning from them, they're learning from us. And we want to focus on not only comprehensive care, but wellness.
How often do we spend time talking about what people have lost versus focusing on how do we gain conditioning, the ability to walk further, to perhaps work smarter, to play harder, to play better. As patients and families that are affected by MS, what are the specific goals in the words and in the voice of the patients and families in terms of where do we want to go now? And I think a big part of where we go next, Ellen and Josh, is to underscore a very important principle, and that is that you should never, ever allow yourself to believe that MS has you. And I think that's a great segue to talk about a very special program that we have at our center, the University of Texas, Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. The principles that are espoused and that are actually applied, utilized, thought about, hoped for in that center are very much in keeping with what Ellen and Josh is doing with the Elliot Lewis Center. And what am I talking about? We have at our center a particular program called the Total Life Care Program, TLC. And this particular program was the brainchild, not of any singular individual. Multiple members of our team had an epiphany during a discussion about how can we better serve, better treat, build hope, not just by using words, but actually build hope through specific achievements and milestones for the patients.
All right, I'm going to break in because I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Most patients, when they're newly diagnosed, the very first thing that they're thinking about is all the things in their life that they're not going to be able to do because they have the diagnosis of MS. And I'm curious to know how you counsel people in that early phase of the disease, how you support them during that period where they're undergoing a very difficult transition in their identity as a healthy person to somebody who now has a chronic disease.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it that way because I still have newly diagnosed patients who come in with a first event who are scared to death, Josh. And I think part of that initial discussion has to be about peeling away those layers of faulty, erroneous, and antiquated thinking. A lot has changed. So yeah, we have to talk about what happened. We have to talk about the imaging. We need to talk about where we're going. But I think thematically, the most important thing is to give the love. And that doesn't mean you tell people things that aren't true. I can't predict the outcome, but I can tell you that the course of this disease has dramatically changed over the years. And so the patient that comes in that's still scared and scared to death, I think it's very important to sit down and have a discussion where we listen. What are your fears? What are you worried about?
I have to interrupt because you mentioned something very casually that is really, really important, which is to ask somebody, what are you afraid of? I can't tell you how many people come to our center having had the initial conversation with their neurologist, and it's all about this is the diagnosis, this is the treatment, and there's no conversation at all about what they're concerned about.
And I think that's what differentiates some MS centers, some MS doctors from others. Listening, caring, talking about the love, talking about the hard issues, addressing those so people have that information and have that hope that we offer them. And that's what we're about.
I think Josh and Ellen and their team would likely agree with me and my team that at the end of the day, we take care of patients one at a time. That's an art form, and science is involved, but there's a lot of art, and there's a lot of love and compassion and support. And these are not empty words. This is what we really do.
And that's a perfect place for a break, and we'll be right back.
Hi.
I'd like to congratulate Elliot on being the most recent recipient of the Brancic Prize, an award made by the Brancic family.
And the National MS Society.
One family member had MS, and they are philanthropists and made a prize on an annual basis for innovation in MS research.
This is the first year it's been given to a collaborative team. Three of us, myself, Laura Balser at New York University, and Peter Calabrese from Johns Hopkins. And the work has been primarily focused on the back of the eye. The retina is a very, very unique tissue to look at questions that have to do with nerve degeneration,
Which relates to the subject of progressive MS, a hot topic for MS research these days. And what are some of the pearls about what you found in this research?
We were allowed to really refine questions because of some very important technical developments. One of these was the evolution of a technique called optical coherence tomography, or OCT. We can now take a picture and isolate the principal 9 layers of the retina to follow patients over time to see the characteristics of no change, patient stable, versus patients who are progressing. The reason why this is
So are
important...
you saying that if there's progression on this test in the eye, that might translate into the concept of progression in their MS in general? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. What we have found, among numerous pearls, is that as the eye goes, so goes the rest of the central nervous system. To put it differently, what we see changing over time in the eye can actually be linked to changes in the brain and spinal cord by very specific MRI techniques.
So
let's
as I'm
get
hearing that, this is what I'm hearing.
Well, now they're getting excited, by the way. And by the way, if you're at home listening to this and you're not excited, I think you need to first, hold on a second, take your pulse, make sure you're breathing, and ask people around you if you're awake and alive, because...
Okay, I'm going to break in here. Here's a moment where you start to get the full Elliot Frohman experience, and I hope you get an idea why we wanted to use this guy's name for our center. It's not just that he's brilliant, it's the passion he has. You can hear it on the boyish enthusiasm in his voice. It's totally infectious. That's why we love this guy.
Who is in possession of the best information on the integrity of the visual system and its function? It's not us. It's not Ellen. It's not Josh. And it's not my OCT machine. It's the patient. The patients have taught us more about this system than any technique, because the patient will say, you know, Elliot, my acuity's good, color's good, but you know what you didn't ask me about? You didn't ask me about motion detection. And I'm your 16-year-old soccer player, and I'm going to tell you something. When I'm 2 hours into a 3-hour soccer practice, the soccer ball is actually not moving in the direction and its motion that it should be moving in. I did some reading. You know what? When you go to the movie theater and you put on a set of glasses for a 3D movie, it turns out those glasses induce something called pull-fric phenomenon, Pulfrich. I swear, this is my 16-year-old patient. The two optic nerves are working differently and at different speeds, and now I know why the ball is not moving linearly. It's moving more like a circle. But you know, when I go to the sideline, I sit down, I tell my coach I need a break, and I drink ice-cold Gatorade. And within 3 minutes, that elliptical motion, or the Pull-Fric phenomenon, is gone.
So this is really interesting. We always test vision using a regular Snellen chart, a regular visual chart, and low contrast Sloan chart. And Josh said to me, I hate that because whenever I do it, it looks like the numbers go down.
Whenever I'm looking at my patients, they're doing great. Their MRI is stable, their physical exam is stable, but their low contrast visual acuity steadily goes down.
Josh's point is very important. When we see changes over time, that we're losing letters. We may lose a line. It turns out for every 5 to 7 letters that we lose, due to MS in this case, there is a corresponding thinning as measured by OCT, Ellen, in the so-called nerve fiber layer and some other layers of the retina. But the point that should be underscored is what the patient reports is actually confirmed by changes in architecture in the majority of MS patients by OCT.
So here's my question. We're treating people with disease-modifying therapies that very effectively reduce inflammation, and we're seeing their low-contrast visual acuity deteriorate over time. What's happening?
The point that Josh just made provokes me into thinking about one of the most common questions my patients ask, and that is, why am I getting worse? This is the most common statement I see in progressive patients in my clinic. I'll repeat it. Why is that everything is stable, the data, except the trajectory of my deterioration?
Everything's stable except the patient perceives worsening. That's not stable.
And almost always the patient is correct, and they have it right earlier than we do. Ultimately, what are we after? Quality of life. To have MS, but not to have MS have you. And the ability to be well. Didn't we begin this at the very beginning, to be well? And those of you who are interested and are still listening, many people who have this diagnosis very early on are preoccupied with this feeling. I feel like this is out of control, that I don't have an influence over this. I didn't drink or smoke myself into multiple sclerosis, although some of those things can certainly be cofactors for worsening, but I was doing it all right, and I got this disease. And at some level, I feel as though I can't control it. But you know, by virtue of taking adherently the disease-modifying therapies, by virtue of then turning our focus to wellness, conditioning, exercise, nutrition, patients begin to realize over time just how many things they really actually do control. We have got to spread the message and the good news. There are a lot of things that our patients with MS control, and at least today can control so much better because we do have disease-modifying therapies that reduce activity, which means that patients potentially can do more.
So I'd like to say that we're here tonight with Marissa Hone, who's our executive director and charts our every move. And we would just like to give her credit for all of her awesomeness.
Oh, you should see the face that she's making right now.
We don't care if she's making the face. She
Right.
can make the
Absolutely.
face. They're not seeing the face. Before we close, we want to mention the fact that we've just opened registration for this year's Journey of Hope Walk. We want to remind you that every year we're the largest fundraiser for this walk, and we're very excited about this year's walk. Marissa, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Patients can register online through the MS Society's website. We've got links for the team page on both our Facebook page and our website. It has my contact phone number. It's 617-789-3171.
Maybe I need to actually clear my calendar and fly out and contribute to that.
Donate if you can, that's great, but join us for sure. We love having people for the walk. It's a really wonderful thing. We get a huge team. It's a lot of fun.
We've got lots of talent that we can leverage on behalf of these patients, but we will never, ever quit or withdraw until we have cured you.
That's a pretty good way to end.
The end.
Great. So